The rifle butt slammed into Mai's shoulder as Staff Sergeant Riker's boot connected with her shooting mat, sending her sprawling face first into the mud. Laughter erupted from the qualification line as she lay there, rain mixing with blood from her split lip. "Wrong range, Princess," Riker sneered, towering over her 5'2" frame. "This ain't no diversity quota tryout." But in 6 hours, when real bullets started flying and bodies started dropping, they'd all learn why the smallest soldier on that range was the only one who could save them. Welcome to my story. Follow me to the end and drop a comment about where you're watching from, so I can see how far these tales have traveled. The morning formation at Fort Ridgeline Sniper School stood rigid in the pre-dawn darkness. 43 candidates arranged in perfect rows, except for one glaring imperfection. Private Mai Vaugh barely reaching the shoulder of the man beside her, her gear looking oversized on her compact frame. The October wind cut through their ACUs like ice water, but nobody moved. Nobody dared. Staff Sergeant Riker's boots crunched across the gravel as he prowled the formation, his voice carrying that special brand of military contempt reserved for those he deemed unworthy. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, though his eyes locked onto Mai, "today begins your sniper qualification. Most of you will fail. Some of you," he paused directly in front of Mai, "shouldn't even be here." The first mini-climax hit like thunder. Riker reached out and flicked Mai's rifle sling with his finger, sending it sliding off her shoulder. The weapon would have crashed to the ground if she hadn't caught it with reflexes that made several heads turn. "Can't even hold your weapon properly, Vaugh. What's your cover story admin error? Political correctness gone wild." Mai's response was silence. Complete, calculated silence. Her hands moved with mechanical precision, adjusting the sling with a series of micro-movements that only someone watching closely would recognize as the mark of someone who'd done this 10,000 times before. Her breathing remained steady. 7 counts in 7 counts. Hold 3 counts out. A rhythm as natural to her as her own heartbeat. "I asked you a question, Private." Riker's face reddened, spittle flying. "Negative, Staff Sergeant," Mai replied, her voice barely above a whisper, but somehow carrying perfect clarity. "I'm here to qualify." The second mini-climax arrived when Captain Blake, the officer in charge of the sniper school, emerged from the command building. His eyes swept the formation with the detached analysis of a man who'd seen 1,000 would-be snipers come and go. "Range goes hot in 30 minutes. 100-yard zero confirmation, then we move to distance work. Gear up." As the formation broke, Elena Rodriguez fell into step beside Mai. "Ignore Riker," she muttered. "He's been running his death bench crew since... I know who he is." Mai interrupted softly, checking her rifle's action with movements so subtle they looked like nervousness to untrained eyes. "And he knows exactly who I'm not supposed to be." The range materialized through the morning mist like a church of precision and death. 25 shooting positions stretched across manicured grass, each with its own story of success and failure ground into the earth. The smell of gun oil and dried grass mixed with the metallic taste of pre-dawn moisture. Brad Stevens, a corn-fed kid from Iowa, with hands that shook just enough to matter, set up on Mai's left. "First time?" he asked, trying to make conversation while fighting with his bipod. "Something like that," Mai replied, but her hands told a different story. The third mini-climax unfolded as she arranged her kit ammunition, sorted by lot number each round, inspected and oriented identically, her range book already filled with atmospheric data she'd collected while others were still yawning. She pulled a small device from her pocket, what looked like a broken phone, but was actually a Kestrel weather meter, with the screen deliberately cracked to hide its military-grade capabilities. Cease fire, cease fire, cease fire. The range safety officer's commands echoed across the qualification course. Shooters, you have 10 minutes to establish your zero. Fire when ready. The first shots cracked across the range in a ragged symphony. Brad's rifle barked 3 times in quick succession, his rounds scattered across his target like buckshot. Elena's formed a respectable group slightly high and right. Riker and his crew, Torres and Mitchell, deliberately shot slow, making a show of their precision. Mai waited, counted wind patterns, watched mirage bands rise from the earth, 1, 2, 3 bands bending left. The 4th mini-climax arrived when she finally squeezed her trigger. 5 shots, but the spotting scope showed only 3 holes. Riker laughed loud enough for everyone to hear. "Va can't even hit paper 2 complete misses." But Captain Blake, watching through the tower's high-power optics, saw something else entirely. He zoomed in on Mai's target. 3 holes formed a single ragged opening so perfectly stacked that they appeared as one. The other 2 shots were 3 inches out at exactly 90-degree angles, deliberate foulers used to verify wind effect without corrupting the actual group. "Time," called the safety officer. The 5th mini-climax struck during the first qualification string. 400 yards prone, supported 10 rounds in 10 minutes. Standard stuff, except Riker had positioned himself as Mai's spotter, a role that should have rotated through the class. "Wind 2¼ minutes left," Riker called out, deliberately feeding her false data. Mai's eye never left her scope. Her finger found its natural position on the trigger pad, not joint. She counted mirage bands again, reading the actual wind at 1/2 minute right. Without acknowledging Riker's call, she held dead center and sent her first round downrange. "Miss," Riker announced loudly before the bullet even arrived. "You're not holding—" The target's center X-ring sprouted a hole. "Lucky shot," Riker growled. 9 more times Mai repeated the process. 9 more times Riker fed her false data. 9 more times she ignored him completely, reading wind through mirage, through grass movement 3/4 downrange, through the barely perceptible drift of a plastic bag caught on the target frame at 600 yards. The 6th mini-climax exploded at lunch. The mess hall hummed with testosterone and barely contained violence as candidates clustered into their predetermined tribes. Mai approached an empty table with her tray standard army mystery meat and overcooked vegetables, only to find Riker's boot suddenly occupying the bench. "Death bench only," he said, Torres and Mitchell flanking him like hyenas. "Diversity hires eat outside." Mai didn't argue. She simply tilted her tray slightly, letting the gravy drain to one side, then pivoted and walked to another table. But as she turned, the 7th mini-climax revealed itself. Elena stood up at her table, followed by Brad and 2 others. "We'll eat outside too," Elena announced. "Air's better." Riker's face darkened. "Rodriguez, you really want to hitch your wagon to someone who just shot expert at 400 while you were feeding her garbage wind calls?" Elena's eyes blazed. "Yeah, I do." The afternoon brought weapons maintenance, and the 8th mini-climax unfolded in the cleaning bay. Each candidate had to field strip their rifle, clean it, and reassemble it while the instructors watched. Most took 3 to 4 minutes respectable time for a complex weapon system. Mai's hands moved like water. 38 seconds to full disassembly. Each part laid out in perfect order, inspected with fingers that knew every surface, every wear pattern, every place where carbon liked to hide. The 9th mini-climax peaked when Instructor Mason, a quiet man with calculator eyes, stopped behind her. "Where'd you learn to strip a rifle like that, Private?" "YouTube, sir," Mai replied, without looking up, her hands already reassembling the weapon with the same fluid grace. Mason's eyes narrowed. He watched her trigger finger throughout the process. It never entered the trigger guard, staying indexed along the receiver even during movements when most people would relax their discipline. YouTube, he repeated, making a note in his book. Quite the educational platform, sir. The 10th mini-climax arrived during the moving target drill. Pop-ups at varying distances, 200, 300, 450 yards, with exposure times dropping from 6 seconds to 3. Most candidates managed 3 or 4 hits out of 5 targets. Riker made a production of hitting 4, standing up and dusting off his hands like a gunfighter. Mai's turn. She loaded her magazine with deliberate care, but Captain Blake, watching through binoculars, caught something others missed. She was loading different ammunition types in specific order. Match grade for the 450 standard ball, for the 200 differing weights she'd somehow pre-sorted by touch alone. The targets emerged. Mai's breathing dropped into that familiar rhythm 773. Her rifle became an extension of her body, tracking targets with mechanical smoothness that looked almost lazy to untrained observers. 5 targets, 5 shots, 5 hits, 22 seconds total. But it was how she hit them that set the 11th mini-climax in motion. Each shot struck not just center mass, but in exactly the same relative position, high thoracic cavity slightly right of center line. The kind of precision that came from muscle memory from thousands of rounds, downrange from training that went far beyond any basic sniper school. "Show off," Riker spat as she cleared her weapon. "Just qualifying staff sergeant," Mai replied. But there was something in her tone, a quiet confidence that made Riker's jaw clench. As evening approached, the 12th mini-climax built slowly. Captain Blake called for low-light qualification shooting at last light, when shadows played tricks and distance became deceptive. Most candidates struggled with the transition, their groups opening up as visibility degraded. Mai produced a small tube from her pocket chapstick to anyone watching. But she applied it to her scope's objective lens in a specific pattern, an old sniper's trick to cut glare without seeming to have specialized equipment. Her shots continued to find their mark, even as others began to miss entirely. "How is she doing that?" Brad whispered to Elena. "She's counting," Elena noticed. "Look at her lips." Indeed, Mai's lips moved in a steady rhythm. Not the 773 of her breathing, but something else. She was counting seconds between wind gusts, building a pattern predicting the lulls. The 13th mini-climax struck when a sudden gust sent everyone's shots wide, everyone except Mai, who had held her shot, waiting for the gust she'd known was coming. Night fell like a curtain, and with it came the first major twist. Navigation cards were distributed for Nightland navigation, a standard part of qualification, but something was different. Mai's card showed coordinates that led through Training Area 7, a section of Fort Ridgeline that had been abandoned for 3 years after a training accident. The buildings there were condemned, off-limits, dangerous. She studied the card, then looked up to find Instructor Mason watching her. Their eyes met for a moment, and something passed between them. Not communication exactly, but recognition. He knew she knew the coordinates were wrong. She knew he knew. She knew. The 14th mini-climax erupted as the candidates prepared for the navigation course. Riker appeared at Mai's side, his breath hot with coffee and malice. "Va, you're with me for the first checkpoint. Safety buddy system." "That's not standard," Elena started to protest. "I'm making it standard." Riker cut her off. "Unless Private Va has a problem with a little extra oversight." Mai shouldered her ruck 70 pounds that looked almost comical on her small frame. "No problem, Staff Sergeant. Lead the way." They moved out into the darkness, flashlights cutting thin beams through the Georgia woods. The path to Training Area 7 diverged from the main trail. After half a mile, a barely visible track through undergrowth that hadn't seen maintenance in years. Riker's two shadows, Torres and Mitchell, materialized from the darkness as they approached the turnoff. "Scary out here," Torres said with mock concern. "Lots of accidents can happen in the dark." The 15th mini-climax built as they approached the first checkpoint, an abandoned bunker from the 1960s, its concrete walls covered in rust stains and graffiti. The metal door hung open, darkness yawning beyond. "Checkpoint's inside," Riker announced, though the GPS clearly showed it should be 50 meters to the east. "After you, Princess." Mai studied the doorway. No choice refusing would be insubordination. She clicked on her flashlight and stepped inside. The beam illuminated concrete walls sweating with moisture floor, covered in debris and broken glass. The space smelled of rust and decay, and something else, recent disturbance. Fresh boot prints in the dust. The door slammed shut behind her, the sound of metal on metal, a chain being wrapped around the handle. Riker's laughter muffled but clear. "Oops. Door must have malfunctioned. Don't worry, Va, we'll send someone back in the morning, if you're still here." Darkness absolute. The 15th mini-climax peaked as Mai stood perfectly still, letting her eyes adjust, her breathing never changing from that steady rhythm. From outside, footsteps retreating. Then silence. She waited 30 seconds. 60. Then in the darkness she spoke not to herself, but as if to someone else. 6 hours. Stay together. The words seemed to echo in the bunker, carrying weight beyond their simple meaning. She moved to the door, running her hands along its surface, finding the hinges, the lock mechanism, understanding its construction through touch alone. From her pocket, she produced something that felt like a standard multi-tool. But her fingers found modifications, the blade ground to a specific angle, the awl replaced with something harder, sharper. She went to work on the hinges. Not the lock always attack the weakest point. But then the 16th mini-climax shattered the night. Gunfire. Not from the range, all qualification strings were complete. Not blanks or simulation rounds, the sharp crack of live ammunition, full-power rifle rounds. AK pattern weapons from the sound, multiple shooters. And they were coming from the main base. Through the crack under the door, she saw light bloom in the distance. Not electric light, but fire. Something was burning. The base sirens began to wail, their sound carrying through the woods like a banshee's scream. The giant voice system crackled to life. Fort Ridgeline, FPCon Delta, this is not a drill. All personnel to defensive positions. Active shooter, multiple hostiles. The 17th mini-climax arrived with brutal clarity. This wasn't hazing anymore. This wasn't a qualification course. The base was under attack, and Mai was locked in a bunker in an abandoned training area where no one would think to look for her. Through the door, she could hear confused voices, Riker, Torres, Mitchell. "What the fuck? That's coming from, we need to get back. What about her? Forget her, we need to move." Footsteps running away, crashing through underbrush. Then more gunfire closer now. Organized bursts, someone who knew what they were doing. The attack wasn't random. It was coordinated. Mai's hands never stopped working on the hinges. The modified tool bit into rust and metal, each movement precise, despite the darkness. But her mind was elsewhere, calculating. The arms room was 1.2 kilometers from her position. The ammunition supply point was 800 meters. The command post. Another burst of gunfire, this time accompanied by screams, real screams, pain and terror and death. The 18th mini-climax struck, as the top hinge gave way. One more to go. But through the gap she'd created, she could see the situation developing. Muzzle flashes in the distance, tracers arcing through the darkness. The base was in chaos, but the pattern was clear. The attackers knew exactly where to hit, exactly when the range would be empty, exactly when security would be lightest. The final hinge surrendered to her persistence. The door crashed outward, and Mai emerged from the bunker like something born from darkness itself. She didn't run toward safety. She didn't run away from danger. She ran toward the arms room. The 19th mini-climax built as she moved through the woods with impossible speed for someone carrying 70 pounds of gear. But the weight wasn't slowing her. It was camouflage, making her look like just another panicked student if anyone saw her. Her path wasn't random, either. She moved through the terrain like water, finding the fastest route downhill, using every shadow, every fold in the earth. She arrived at the arms room to find chaos. The armorer, a specialist barely out of AIT, stood frozen as candidates pounded on the cage demanding weapons. "We need rifles," Brad was shouting. "The base is under attack." "I can't," the specialist stammered. "Not without authorization from—" Mai stepped forward, and the 20th and final mini-climax of Part 1 exploded. She spoke a series of numbers, not loudly, but with perfect clarity. 27791, Alpha Zulu. The armorer's eyes widened. That was today's emergency action code, something only the duty officer should know. "Open it," Mai commanded, her voice carrying an authority that had nothing to do with rank. "Now!" The cage door swung open. Weapons lined the walls, M4s, M110s, and in the corner, covered in dust, a rifle that shouldn't have been there. A TAC-338, an advanced sniper system that Fort Ridgeline wasn't even supposed to have in inventory. Mai walked past the newer weapons and picked up the TAC-338. Serial number 447. She checked it with movements that spoke of intimate familiarity, not just with the weapon type, but with this specific rifle. "How did you—" Elena started to ask. Another burst of gunfire closer now. Someone screaming for a medic. Mai turned to the assembled candidates, and in that moment the scared rookie private was gone. In her place stood something else. Something that had been hiding in plain sight all day. "Guard this room," she ordered. "Nobody gets in without proper recognition. Friendlies only." She loaded a magazine with practiced ease. "I'm going to high ground." "You can't," Brad protested. "We should stay together. 6 hours." Mai repeated the same words she'd spoken in the bunker. "Stay together." She disappeared into the night, moving toward the sound of gunfire, toward the administration building where the high ground waited. Behind her, Elena watched with growing realization. "That's not normal," she whispered. "The way she moves, the way she handled that rifle." Another explosion, this one close enough to rattle windows. The base was under full assault, and somewhere in the darkness, a small woman with a big rifle was about to change everything. The door to the arms room slammed shut. Outside, the night erupted with violence. Inside, 23 candidates stood with weapons they'd never expected to use outside of training, waiting for a dawn that might never come. And in the distance, barely audible over the chaos, came the distinctive crack of a .338 Lapua Magnum. Not the wild firing of the attackers, but something else. Measured, precise, deadly. The real battle for Fort Ridgeline had just begun. The TAC-338 felt alive in Mai's hands as she sprinted through the darkness, its weight perfectly balanced despite being designed for someone twice her size. The sirens continued their haunting wail, while automatic weapons fire erupted in controlled bursts from at least 3 different positions. This wasn't random violence. It was a coordinated assault executed with military precision. The first mini-climax of Part 2 hit when Mai reached the ladder to the administration building's roof access. Blood streaked the rungs fresh, still warm. Someone had tried this route already, and failed. She could hear labored breathing from above the distinctive wheeze of a sucking chest wound. Without hesitation, she slung the rifle and began climbing, each movement calculated to minimize noise despite the chaos around her. Specialist Thompson lay crumpled on the roof's edge, his hands pressed against a hole in his chest that bubbled with each breath. His eyes went wide when he saw Mai emerge from the darkness. "Private, what are you—" "Don't talk," Mai whispered, pulling out what looked like a standard first aid kit, but contained modifications no basic trainee should have. She produced a chest seal, not the standard issue, but an advanced vented model that wouldn't be fielded to regular army units for another year. "This is going to hurt." The second mini-climax erupted as she worked. Thompson's eyes tracked her movements with growing confusion. Her hands moved with the practiced efficiency of a combat medic, but her focus remained split, treating him while simultaneously scanning sectors of fire, cataloging muzzle flashes, building a three-dimensional map of the battle in her mind. "There," she pointed to a concealed position near the motor pool. "3 shooters overlapping fields of fire. They're driving everyone toward the ammunition supply point." Thompson coughed blood. "How can you—" "Because that's what I'd do," Mai replied, finishing the seal. She keyed his radio with blood-slick fingers. Any station, this is—" She paused, almost imperceptibly. "This is Ridgeline 7. I have 1 urgent surgical at the admin building roof, marking with IR strobe." The third mini-climax struck when the radio crackled back immediately, not with the confused chatter she expected, but with a crisp, professional response. "Ridgeline 7, this is Overwatch Actual. Confirm your last? Did you say Ridgeline 7? Mai's jaw tightened. Someone in the command structure recognized that call sign, which meant her cover was already compromised. "Confirmed. 1 urgent surgical recommend approach from the north. Southern approach is compromised." "Roger that, Ridgeline 7. Be advised we have 12 friendly KIA unknown number of wounded. Hostiles have night vision and are specifically targeting leadership." The fourth mini-climax built as Mai processed this information. 12 dead already. The attackers had night vision while most of the base defenders were blind in the darkness. And they were hunting officers specifically, which meant Captain Blake. She breathed, then grabbed Thompson's radio again. "Overwatch, what's the status of sniper school leadership?" "Unknown. Last contact was—" The transmission cut to static as another explosion rocked the base, this one hitting the communications tower. The attackers were systematically eliminating the base's ability to coordinate defense. Mai dragged Thompson behind an HVAC unit, propping him where medics could find him, but enemies couldn't. "Stay here. Help's coming." "Wait." Thompson grabbed her sleeve with surprising strength. "That rifle. I inventoried that rifle. It's supposed to be destroyed, listed as lost in Afghanistan with its operator." The fifth mini-climax peaked as their eyes met. "Must be a paperwork error," Mai said quietly, then vanished toward her chosen firing position. The roof offered a commanding view of the base, and what Mai saw made her blood run cold. The attackers had infiltrated during the navigation exercise, using the chaos of dozens of candidates moving through the woods as cover. They'd positioned themselves perfectly, cutting off the quick reaction force from the arms room, pinning down security forces at the main gate, and slowly tightening the noose around the ammunition supply point, where most of the base's explosive ordnance was stored. The sixth mini-climax erupted when Mai spotted movement through her scope, not the attackers, but Elena and Brad leading a group of candidates in a desperate attempt to reach the trapped QRF. They were walking into a kill zone completely unaware of the machine gun position that had been established on their flank. Mai's breathing dropped into that familiar rhythm. 7 in 7, hold 3 out. The world narrowed to the circle of her scope. Wind was gusting left to right at approximately 8 miles per hour, but there was a wind shadow effect created by the buildings that would affect the bullet's flight path at. The machine gun opened fire. The 7th mini-climax exploded as tracers split the night, catching 2 candidates in the open. They went down hard, one screaming, one silent. Elena and Brad dove behind a concrete barrier as rounds chewed chunks from their cover. The machine gun team was good disciplined fire-talking guns technique, one shooting while the other spotted impacts. Mai's first shot took the gunner through the bridge of his nose at 743 yards. The assistant gunner had just enough time to look confused before her second shot found him center mass, the .338 Lapua Magnum round crushing through his body armor like tissue paper. The 8th mini-climax peaked as both bodies slumped forward, the machine gun falling silent so suddenly that the absence of noise seemed louder than the shooting. "Move," Mai whispered into the wind, watching through her scope, as Elena grabbed the wounded and Brad provided covering fire with his M4. They sprinted toward better cover, never knowing that death had been seconds away. But killing the machine gun team had revealed Mai's position. The 9th mini-climax struck as return fire erupted toward the admin building. Rounds cracked overhead, that distinctive supersonic snap that meant someone else had a precision rifle and knew how to use it. Mai rolled left just as a bullet sparked off the spot where she'd been prone. Counter-sniper operations were a deadly game of chess played at 900 yards. The 10th mini-climax built as Mai low-crawled to a new position, processing angles and trajectories. The enemy sniper's shot had come from elevated position, probably the water tower near the eastern perimeter. But approaching that shot angle meant he'd been positioned there before the attack started, which meant, "Inside help," she muttered, the pieces clicking together. Someone had provided the attackers with detailed intelligence about the base layout, duty rosters, and most importantly, the sniper school's training schedule. The 11th mini-climax erupted when her peripheral vision caught movement. Instructor Mason, supposedly helping evacuate wounded, was instead moving toward the sensitive items vault, where classified equipment was stored. His path was all wrong for evacuation routes, but perfect for someone trying to avoid the known positions of the attackers. Mai faced a critical decision. The enemy sniper was the immediate threat, but Mason's movement suggested something larger at play. The 12th mini-climax peaked. When she made her choice, she fired a deliberately wide shot toward the water tower, close enough to make the sniper duck, but not revealing her true capabilities. Then she displaced again, this time tracking Mason through her scope. He produced a keycard that shouldn't exist. The sensitive items vault required 2-person authentication, but Mason swiped once and entered alone. The 13th mini-climax struck as Mai realized the full scope of the betrayal. This wasn't just an attack. It was a heist. Someone was using the chaos to steal classified sniper equipment and training materials that could be worth millions on the black market. The enemy sniper fired again, this time targeting the medical station where wounded were being gathered. The round punched through a window, dropping a medic who'd been treating a candidate. Screams erupted from inside the building. The 14th mini-climax built as Mai made a calculation that went against every instinct. She deliberately exposed herself, standing up just enough to draw fire. The enemy sniper took the bait, his muzzle flash blooming in her peripheral vision. Mai dropped flat as the round passed inches from her head, but she'd gotten what she needed: exact positioning. The 15th mini-climax exploded with her return shot. 917 yards through gusting wind and debris smoke. The bullet flight time was nearly 3 seconds, an eternity in combat. Through her scope, she watched the enemy sniper adjusting for his next shot, completely unaware that death was already in flight. The impact lifted him from his position, his body cartwheeling off the water tower's platform. But there was no time to confirm the kill. The 16th mini-climax struck as more attackers emerged from concealment, rushing toward the breach the sniper had been covering. Mai's hands moved without conscious thought, working the bolt, adjusting for distance, reading wind through smoke and flame. Each shot found its mark with mechanical precision. An attacker carrying demolition charges toward the fuel depot down. Another setting up an RPG position eliminated before he could shoulder the weapon. A team trying to flank the surviving candidates, 3 shots, 3 bodies, 4 seconds total. The 17th mini-climax peaked when she heard boots on the ladder below. Someone was coming up, multiple someones from the sound of it. Mai pulled her sidearm, a Glock 19 that regulation said she shouldn't have, and positioned herself behind cover. But the first face that appeared wasn't an enemy, it was Captain Blake. Bleeding from a scalp wound and carrying an M4 with practiced ease. Behind him came 2 more figures, Elena, and surprisingly Riker. "Va!" Blake's voice carried a mix of confusion and something else recognition. "What the hell are you doing up?" He stopped mid-sentence, seeing the TAC 338, seeing the spent brass understanding flooding his features. "My God, you're the one who's been—" "Sir, we need to move," Mai interrupted. "Mason's compromised. He's in the sensitive items vault right now." The 18th mini-climax erupted as Riker stepped forward, his face twisted with rage. "You're saying Instructor Mason is—" "I'm saying I watched him enter a dual authentication vault with a single key card, while attackers who somehow knew exactly when and where to hit us are keeping everyone busy." Mai's voice remained steady despite the chaos. "Draw your own conclusions." The first major twist of Part 2 struck like lightning. Blake pulled out his radio, switching to a command frequency that shouldn't have been accessible from a standard unit. "Thunder 6, this is Phantom Actual. Authentication Romeo 77. We have confirmation of inside threat. Instructor Mason is compromised currently in sensitive items vault." Mai's eyes widened slightly, the only sign of her surprise. Phantom Actual was a special operations designation. Blake wasn't just running a sniper school, he was running something else entirely. "Va!" Blake said, his entire demeanor shifting from confusion officer to operational commander. "Or should I say, Sergeant First Class Williams?" "Yes. I pulled your real file the moment you scored that impossible group this morning. Killed in action in Kandahar according to the official record." The 19th mini-climax built as Mai remained silent, neither confirming nor denying. Elena and Riker looked between them with growing confusion. "Sir, what the fuck is happening?" Riker demanded. "What's happening, Staff Sergeant, is that someone planted a ghost in my sniper school, and that ghost is currently the only thing keeping us alive." Blake gestured to the battlefield below, where Mai's precision fire had turned the tide. "The question is, are you here to help, or are you part of the problem?" The 20th mini-climax peaked when Mai finally spoke. "I'm here because someone's been selling our sniper graduates' information to hostile forces. 14 KIA operators in 18 months, all trained here, all killed by counter-snipers who knew exactly how they'd been taught to shoot." Another explosion, closer this time. The attackers were getting desperate, trying to complete their mission before reinforcements arrived. The 21st mini-climax struck as Mason emerged from the vault carrying 2 cases that Mai recognized immediately: advanced ballistic computers and classified training materials that contained detailed information on every sniper technique taught to U.S. forces. "He's moving toward the motor pool," Elena reported, watching through binoculars. "There's a vehicle waiting. Shit, they've got a convoy staged." The 20-second mini-climax built as Mai made another calculation. "Sir, I need you to trust me. Can you get the candidates to create a diversion at the main gate?" Blake studied her for a heartbeat. "What are you planning?" Something that officially never happened in Kandahar. Understanding flickered in Blake's eyes. The 23rd mini-climax peaked as he nodded. "Riker Rodriguez with me. We're going to make some noise." He paused at the ladder. "Sergeant Williams, good hunting." As they disappeared into the darkness, Mai began moving to her final position. The 24th mini-climax built as she set up overlooking the motor pool's exit route. The convoy would have to pass through a natural choke point created by concrete barriers 950 yards from her position. In daylight, with no wind, it would be a challenging shot. At night, through smoke and chaos targeting moving vehicles, it should have been impossible. The 25th mini-climax erupted as Blake's diversion began. Candidates opened fire at the main gate with everything they had, drawing attention and return fire. The attackers' discipline finally broke as they began responding to the new threat, their carefully orchestrated plan fragmenting. Mason's convoy started moving 3 vehicles in tactical formation. The lead vehicle was an up-armored SUV, probably stolen from base security. Mason rode in the middle vehicle with the stolen materials. The trail vehicle provided rear security. The 26th mini-climax peaked as Mai exhaled completely, letting her body become perfectly still. The world condensed to mathematics: wind speed, bullet drop, target, velocity, lead, distance. She would get one shot before they cleared the kill zone. She didn't aim for Mason. She aimed for the lead vehicle's engine block. The .338 round punched through the hood at precisely the right angle, destroying the engine's critical components. The 27th mini-climax struck as the lead vehicle died, instantly slewing sideways and blocking the exit route. The other vehicles slammed on brakes, trapped in the kill zone. Mai's second shot took out the trail vehicle's front tire, causing it to fishtail into a barrier. The 28th mini-climax built as Mason's middle vehicle tried to ram through, but Mai's third shot found its radiator steam erupting in a blinding cloud. Figures erupted from the vehicles, some returning fire blindly toward her position, others trying to retrieve the cases. The 29th mini-climax peaked as Mai switched to rapid engagement, not killing, but wounding knee shots, shoulder impacts, precisely placed rounds that took fighters out of action without killing them. They needed prisoners, needed intelligence about who was behind this network. But Mason was smarter than expected. The 30th mini-climax struck as he produced a white phosphorus grenade, not to attack, but to destroy the evidence. If those cases burned, all proof of the conspiracy would disappear. Mai had 1.3 seconds to make an impossible shot, putting a round through Mason's hand before he could pull the pin at 950 yards through smoke and flame with a target moving erratically. The 31st mini-climax exploded as her rifle spoke one final time. The round caught Mason's wrist just as his fingers found the pin, the impact spinning him around and sending the grenade tumbling harmlessly into a drainage ditch where it detonated without damaging the evidence. The 32nd mini-climax built as quick reaction forces finally broke through, surrounding the convoy and taking the surviving attackers into custody. Mason lay on the ground, clutching his shattered wrist, looking up at the admin building where he knew his shooter must be. But Mai was already moving, breaking down the TAC 338 with practiced efficiency. The 33rd mini-climax peaked when she found something that made her blood run cold, a data card hidden in the rifle's stock, placed there by someone who knew she would eventually use this weapon. The card contained a single file, a list of names, dates, and locations. Every sniper-trained operator who had died in the last 18 months, and more, chilling a list of future targets with dates extending 6 months into the future. Someone had been planning these killings with algorithmic precision. The 34th mini-climax struck as footsteps approached her position again. But this time, Mai didn't reach for her weapon. She recognized the gait, the breathing pattern. Brad Stevens emerged from the ladder, but something was different about him. His hands were steady now, his eyes sharp with purpose. "Sergeant Williams," he said quietly, and Mai's suspicion was confirmed. Brad wasn't the nervous farm boy he'd pretended to be. "Counterintelligence," she asked. "Criminal Investigation Division, actually. I've been tracking the money trail for 6 months." The 35th mini-climax built as Brad revealed his own investigation. Mason was just middle management. The real orchestrator is still out there, and they have assets in every major training facility. The second major twist of Part 2 hit with devastating force. Brad produced a tablet showing financial records. $40 million in cryptocurrency routed through shell companies, all leading back to one source, a defense contractor with exclusive contracts for sniper training systems. They were creating demand for their product, Mai said, understanding flooding through her. Kill American snipers, create fear, then sell the solution. And Mason was feeding them our operators' exact training, making them vulnerable to specific counter-sniper techniques. The 36th mini-climax peaked as Brad showed her another file. "But here's the thing Mason didn't know about you. Nobody did. You weren't supposed to be here." Mai remained silent, but her mind was racing. Someone had placed that data card in the rifle. Someone who knew she would respond to this attack. Someone who wanted her to find this information. The 37th mini-climax built as Elena's voice crackled over the radio. "All stations be advised, we have a problem. 12 attackers in custody, but our count shows 13 entered the base." The missing attacker. Mai's blood went cold as she realized the implications. The 38th mini-climax struck as she grabbed the radio. "All stations lock down the admin building now, check on Thompson." But it was too late. The 39th mini-climax peaked as they reached the roof access to find Thompson's body and the IR strobe still marking the position. The chest seal Mai had applied was professional, would have saved his life. But someone had finished him with a knife, someone who had been on this roof after Mai left. "The 13th attacker was already here," Blake said, arriving with reinforcements. "They've been inside the wire the whole time." The 40th mini-climax built as Mai studied the scene with growing realization. The knife wound was precise, professional, but there was something familiar about the technique. She'd seen this exact method before in Afghanistan, used by someone who was supposed to be Ridgeline 7. "This is Overwatch," the radio interrupted. "Be advised we have movement in Sector 7, the abandoned training area." The 41st mini-climax struck as Mai understood. The bunker where she'd been locked, it hadn't been random. Someone had wanted her there, away from the initial attack, forced to reveal herself when she escaped. "It's a test," she breathed. "This whole thing, it's not just about stealing equipment. Someone's testing me." Blake studied her with calculating eyes. "Testing you for what?" Before she could answer, the 42nd mini-climax erupted with new gunfire, but this time from inside the base perimeter. Security forces were shooting at something, but their reports made no sense. "Command, we have a hostile negative scratch that we have something. It's moving too fast, we can't." The transmission cut to screams. The 43rd mini-climax peaked as a figure emerged from the smoke below, tall, lean, moving with inhuman efficiency. They wore no unit patches, no identification, just black tactical gear and a mask that reflected the firelight. In their hand was a rifle Mai recognized with sickening clarity, the twin to the TAC 338 she held, serial number 448. "Hello, Kestrel," a synthesized voice echoed across the base PA system that shouldn't have been accessible. "Did you really think you were the only ghost they brought back?" The 44th mini-climax built to crescendo as the figure raised their rifle toward the admin building. Mai had a split second to recognize the shooting stance identical to her own, down to the finger placement and breathing rhythm. "Everybody down!" she screamed, diving for cover, as the first .338 round punched through the roof exactly where she'd been standing. The 45th and final mini-climax of Part 2 exploded as she understood the horrifying truth. Whoever was behind this conspiracy hadn't just been killing American snipers, they'd been studying them, learning from them. And now they'd created something worse, an enemy trained with American techniques, equipped with American weapons, and targeting American operators with perfect inside knowledge. The figure below chambered another round with mechanical precision, and Mai heard her own voice echoed back through the PA system, a recording from some previous operation. "Stay together." But the words were followed by something else, something that made her blood freeze. "Or die alone." The base lights suddenly cut out completely, plunging Fort Ridgeline into absolute darkness. In that black void, two ghosts faced each other across 900 yards of killing ground. One sworn to protect, one programmed to destroy. And somewhere in the command bunker, a computer screen flickered to life, showing a message that would haunt everyone who saw it. Phase 1 complete. Phantom Protocol initiated. The real war had just begun, and Mai realized with crystal clarity that everything up to this point, the attack Mason's betrayal, even her own presence here, had been orchestrated by someone who knew exactly what buttons to push to draw her out of hiding. In the darkness, two rifles tracked through the night, searching for their target. The hunter had become the hunted, and dawn was still 4 hours away. The darkness was absolute, but Mai had learned long ago that darkness was just another form of cover. She belly-crawled across the roof, feeling her way through spent brass and concrete debris, while the synthesized voice continued its psychological warfare through the PA system, playing recordings of her own communications from missions that were supposed to be classified beyond any level Mason could have accessed. The first mini-climax struck, when her hand found something warm and wet in the darkness, blood, but not from Thompson. Fresh blood trailing away from where the mysterious shooter had been. She'd hit them with debris from her near miss, which meant they were human. They could bleed, they could die. "Kestrel," the synthesized voice taunted. "Your 773 breathing pattern makes you predictable. I've studied every shot you've ever taken." Mai deliberately changed her breathing to an irregular pattern, knowing the shooter might have night vision or thermals trained on her position. The second mini-climax built as she heard Elena's voice, barely a whisper, from 3 feet away. "Williams, that you—" "Stay flat," Mai breathed back. "They're using our own training against us." The third mini-climax erupted when muzzle flash bloomed from below, not aimed at them, but at Blake's position. The captain's scream cut through the night, followed by the distinctive sound of a body hitting concrete from height. But then Blake's voice crackled over the radio. "Negative impact. Repeat, negative impact. The bastard's shooting at shadows." Mai understood immediately. The shooter was firing at heat signatures through thermal optics, but Blake had thrown out decoys hot packs from MRE heaters attached to gear. The fourth mini-climax peaked as she processed this information. Their enemy had technology, but was still bound by its limitations. "Elena," she whispered, "your chapstick, the menthol one. Give it to me." In the darkness, Elena passed over the small tube. Mai crushed it between her fingers, releasing the mentholated petroleum, and smeared it across her face and hands. The menthol would create a cooling sensation that might confuse thermal imaging for crucial seconds. The fifth mini-climax struck when Brad's voice cut through on a different frequency. one that shouldn't have been accessible on standard radios. Williams CID has been tracking this. The defense contractor, it's Prometheus Systems. They've been running a black project called Mirror Protocol. They're creating perfect counter-operators using stolen training data. The synthesized voice laughed over the PA. Very good, Private Stevens. Or should I say, Special Agent Stevens. Did you really think we didn't know about your investigation? The sixth mini-climax, built as emergency lighting, suddenly flared to life, not the base's primary system, but portable floodlights that the enemy had positioned to eliminate shadows and create shooting galleries. Mai found herself exposed on the roof with nowhere to hide. But exposure worked both ways. The seventh mini-climax peaked when she finally saw her opponent clearly the same height and build as her, moving with an identical gait pattern. But there was something wrong with their movement, too perfect, too mechanical, like someone following a choreographed routine rather than responding naturally to combat. Mai made a desperate choice. Instead of taking cover, she stood up, fully presenting herself as a target. The eighth mini-climax exploded as the enemy sniper took the bait, their shot passing exactly where center mass should have been, except Mai had twisted at the last microsecond, the round tearing through her gear but missing flesh. The muzzle flash gave her what she needed. She fired back, not at the shooter, but at the floodlight beside them. The ninth mini-climax struck, as the light exploded in a shower of sparks, casting wild shadows that destroyed the carefully constructed kill zone. 13 minutes, the synthesized voice announced. That's how long your longest counter-sniper duel lasted in Kandahar. Let's see if you can beat your record. The 10th mini-climax built, as Mai realized this enemy didn't just have her training data, they had her actual mission recordings. Every shot she'd ever taken in official operations had been analyzed, studied, turned into algorithms to predict her behavior. But algorithms couldn't account for everything. The 11th mini-climax peaked when Mai deliberately made what looked like an amateur mistake, silhouetting herself against the skyline. The enemy sniper adjusted position to take advantage exactly as the training manual would dictate. But Mai was counting on it. Elena, following Mai's whispered instructions, had been moving too. The 12th mini-climax erupted as she triggered an emergency flare directly behind the enemy's position. The sudden backlight revealed them perfectly for one crucial second. Mai's shot caught them in the shoulder, spinning them around. But instead of going down, they rolled. With the impact came up shooting. The 13th mini-climax struck as both rifles spoke simultaneously. Mai felt the wind of a round pass her cheek, while her own shot sparked off the enemy's rifle, destroying their optics. Impressive, the synthesized voice said. But now there was something different, a slight distortion that suggested the speaker was in pain. But you're forgetting something, Kestrel. I know about Carpenter. The 14th mini-climax hit like a physical blow. Carpenter, her spotter in Afghanistan, killed because someone had leaked their position. Only 3 people in the world should have known that name. That's right, the voice continued. I know about the guilt, how you count his children's birthdays, how you send money to his widow every month under a fake charity, how you whisper his name before every shot. The 15th mini-climax built as rage flooded through Mai, exactly what they wanted. Emotion made snipers sloppy. But she channeled it differently, using the anger to sharpen her focus rather than cloud it. She began moving again, but not in any pattern from her training. Instead, she moved like the untrained private voix would move, clumsy, obvious scared. The enemy sniper took the bait, repositioning for what should have been an easy shot. The 16th mini-climax peaked when Mai suddenly dropped the act, pivoting and firing in one fluid motion. The round caught the enemy's rifle stock, exploding it into splinters. But her opponent adapted instantly, drawing a sidearm and continuing to engage. The 17th mini-climax struck as they began closing distance, turning the sniper duel into something more intimate and deadly. "All units," Blake's voice cut through the chaos. "Be advised, military police have detained 12 suspects, but they're all hired mercenaries. No connection to Prometheus systems except cryptocurrency payments." The 18th mini-climax built as Brad added crucial intelligence. "I've been digging deeper. Prometheus isn't just selling counter-sniper training. They're selling something called Phantom Operators, perfectly trained enemy combatants based on our best soldiers' profiles." The first major twist arrived with devastating clarity. This wasn't just about money or military contracts. Someone was creating an army of perfect enemies, each one designed to counter specific American operators. And Mai was their prototype test. The 19th mini-climax erupted as the enemy operative spoke directly, no longer using the synthesized voice. "You want to know who I am, Kestrel?" The voice was female-accented Eastern European, maybe Russian. "I'm you. Everything you are perfected. Without the weaknesses, without the guilt, without the hesitation." "You're a copy," Mai shot back, continuing to maneuver. "And copies are never as good as the original." The 20th mini-climax peaked when the operative laughed. "I'm not a copy. I'm an upgrade. Project Prometheus took your skills and removed your limitations. No family to protect, no conscience to slow me down, no loyalty except to the mission." They were close now, maybe 50 yards apart. Urban combat range where sniper rifles became liabilities. The 21st mini-climax struck as both operators transitioned to sidearms simultaneously, their movements perfect mirrors of each other. But then Elena did something unexpected. The 22nd mini-climax built as she began calling out wind readings over the radio, except they were completely wrong, obviously false to anyone with training. The enemy operative hesitated, trying to process why someone would give such bad information. That hesitation cost her. The 23rd mini-climax exploded as Mai used the distraction to put 2 rounds into the operative's center mass. The impacts staggered her backward, but she stayed on her feet. Body armor high-end, probably rated for rifle rounds. 13 minutes, Mai said coldly. "Time's up." The 24th mini-climax peaked as she holstered her sidearm and drew something else, Thompson's knife taken from his body. Close quarters combat was risky, but it was also something that couldn't be learned from recordings and algorithms. It required instinct adaptation, reading an opponent's soul through their movement. The operative drew her own blade, and they circled each other in the flickering light of burning vehicles. The 25th mini-climax struck when they clashed steel on steel, each testing the other's defenses. The operative was good, textbook perfect, in fact. Every move was technically flawless, but that was her weakness. The 26th mini-climax built as Mai deliberately made mistakes, leaving openings that the training manual said to exploit. Each time the operative took the bait, Mai was ready, having set the trap based on her own knowledge of what the manual taught. Blood flowed from both fighters, now dozens of small cuts accumulating. The 27th mini-climax peaked when the operative overcommitted to a thrust, expecting Mai to respond according to doctrine. Instead, Mai did something no training manual would ever recommend. She let the blade pierce her left shoulder while stepping inside the operative's guard. The 28th mini-climax exploded as Mai's knife found the gap in the operative's armor, sliding between tactical plates. The operative's eyes widened, not with pain, but with something like respect. "You're not following the training," she gasped, blood frothing on her lips. That's because I wrote the fucking training, Mai replied, twisting the blade. The 29th mini-climax struck as the operative fell to her knees but managed to activate something on her wrist, a data transmitter. Phase 1 complete, she whispered. Phantom protocol initiated. They have everything they need now. The 30th mini-climax built as Mai realized what had really happened. This entire attack, the betrayal, even this duel. It had all been designed to make her reveal her real capabilities, her adaptations, how she deviated from standard training. They'd been recording everything, studying her true methods, rather than just her official records. Who's behind this? Mai demanded, applying pressure to keep the operative conscious. Who's running Prometheus? The 31st mini-climax peaked when the operative smiled through blood-stained teeth. Someone who knows you very well. Someone you trust. Check Arlington. Arlington, the National Cemetery. The 32nd mini-climax struck. As Mai understood, there was only one person connected to Arlington who would have access to her records, her real records. Someone she'd thought was dead. The operative's hand moved to a second device, a dead man's switch. The 33rd mini-climax erupted as Mai realized the operative's body was rigged with explosives designed to eliminate evidence and anyone close by. "Williams, get clear!" Blake shouted, but Mai was already moving, diving off the roof as the 34th mini-climax exploded literally. The blast wave caught her mid-fall, slamming her into a concrete barrier with bone-crushing force. The world went gray at the edges. Through the ringing in her ears, she heard voices, Elena calling for medics, Brad coordinating with arriving FBI units, Blake establishing a perimeter. The 35th mini-climax built as she fought to stay conscious, knowing that losing awareness now meant losing critical intelligence. Riker appeared in her vision of all people, applying pressure to wounds she hadn't realized she had. "Stay with us, Va Williams, whoever the fuck you are. You don't get to die until you explain what just happened." The 36th mini-climax peaked when Brad's tablet buzzed with new intelligence. "Holy shit! Prometheus systems just went dark, all their servers wiped, all their personnel disappeared. It's like they never existed." But Mai knew better. The 37th mini-climax struck as she grabbed Brad's arm with desperate strength. "Arlington," she gasped. "Check Arlington Cemetery. Gravesite Delta 77. The answer's there." The second major twist of Part 3 arrived as Brad's face went pale. Delta 77. That's your grave. Sergeant First Class Mai Williams killed in action, Kandahar Province. The 38th mini-climax built as everyone stared at her. She wasn't just using a dead soldier's identity, she was the dead soldier. Someone had faked her death, erased her existence, and turned her into a ghost. But who and why? "There's more," Brad continued, his voice shaking. "According to the records, you were buried with full honors. Your family attended the funeral. Your mother gave the eulogy." The 39th mini-climax peaked with Mai's bitter laugh. "My mother died when I was 12. Whoever that woman was, she wasn't family." The 40th mini-climax struck when Elena returned from checking the operative's body, or what was left of it. "I found something," she said, holding up a partially melted data card. "It's damaged, but might be recoverable." Mai tried to sit up, ignoring the pain screaming through her body. The 41st mini-climax built as she recognized the card's design, military grade, encrypted the kind used for classified operational data. If they could recover even part of it. "There's a problem," Blake announced, listening to his radio. "DOD is sending a containment team. They're ordering all evidence transferred to their custody, all witnesses isolated for debriefing. The 40-second mini-climax peaked as Mai understood what that meant. Someone high up wanted this buried. The Prometheus investigation would disappear into a black hole of classification, and everyone who knew the truth would be silenced one way or another. "We need to move," she said, struggling to her feet. "Now, before they arrive." "You can barely stand," Elena protested. The 43rd mini-climax struck as Mai pulled out the data card she'd found in the TAC 338's stock. "This contains a kill list, past and future. If we don't act on this intelligence, more operators will die. Good people with families." Blake made a command decision. The 44th mini-climax built as he turned to his people. "Training accident," he announced. "Massive gas leak led to explosions and hallucinations. Everyone was evacuated safely. That's the official story." "Sir," Riker protested, "we can't just— Staff Sergeant, you locked a student in a bunker during a live fire exercise." Blake cut him off. "You want that investigated, or do you want to help us save American lives?" The 45th and final mini-climax of Part 3 reached its crescendo as sirens approached, not military police, but black SUVs with government plates. The containment team was arriving faster than expected. Mai made a decision that would change everything. She handed the data card to Brad. "Get this to someone you trust at CID, outside channels." Then to Elena. "You never saw me. I was never here." "Where are you going?" Elena demanded. Mai looked toward the horizon where dawn was just beginning to break. "Arlington, to visit my own grave. Someone's been playing a very long game, and it's time I found out who's holding the pieces." She disappeared into the smoke and shadows just as the black SUVs screeched to a halt. Men in suits emerged, weapons-drawn badges flashing. They found a scene of devastation, traumatized candidates, and a story that didn't quite make sense. But they didn't find Mai Williams. The ghost had vanished once again, leaving only questions, and the lingering count of brass casings on a rooftop. 14 rounds fired. 13 confirmed hits. The last round was still in flight, metaphorically speaking, aimed at a target that didn't yet know it was in the crosshairs. Someone had awakened a phantom, and phantoms had a way of haunting those who disturbed them. As the sun rose over Fort Ridgeline, painting the smoke-filled sky in shades of amber and blood, a lone figure in stolen civilian clothes walked off base through a gap in the fence that shouldn't have existed. Behind her, the cover-up was already beginning. But ahead lay answers, and perhaps finally the truth about who had turned America's best operators into targets in someone else's war. The 13 minutes were over. The real hunt was about to begin. The stolen Honda Civic smelled like cigarettes and old coffee as Mai drove north on Interstate 95, her shoulder screaming with every gear shift. Blood had soaked through the makeshift bandage she'd fashioned from a torn t-shirt, but stopping at a hospital meant cameras questions and a trail that certain people would definitely follow. 20 miles from Fort Ridgeline, she pulled into a truck stop, where the bathroom's broken lock and lack of security cameras made it perfect for her needs. The first mini-climax struck as she examined her wounds in the cracked mirror. The knife wound was deep, but clean, missing major vessels by millimeters. The operative had been precise even while dying, inflicting damage that would slow but not stop. Professional courtesy between killers, perhaps, or something else. Her burner phone buzzed a text from a number she didn't recognize. Building 5 Arlington. Midnight. Come alone, or the next grave will be real. The second mini-climax built as she recognized the syntax pattern. Military intelligence training left subtle fingerprints in communication styles, and this one screamed Special Activities Division. The third mini-climax erupted when the bathroom door burst open. Not government agents, but Elena Rodriguez, still in her torn ACUs holding a first aid kit. "Thought you might need this," she said simply, as if finding Mai hadn't required exceptional tracking skills. "How?" Mai asked, though she was already processing the answer. "Your breathing pattern. 773. You did it unconsciously while hot-wiring that car. I heard it from my position." Elena opened the medical kit with practiced efficiency. "Also, you're bleeding pretty badly. That leaves a trail." The fourth mini-climax peaked as Elena worked on Mai's wounds with skill that went beyond basic combat lifesaver training. "Where'd you learn advanced field surgery?" Mai asked through gritted teeth. "Same place you learned to shoot, probably. Somewhere that doesn't officially exist." Elena's hands never paused. "My real name's not Rodriguez. It's Volkov. Former SVR defected 3 years ago." The fifth mini-climax struck like lightning. Russian foreign intelligence here now helping her. Mai's hand moved toward her concealed sidearm, but Elena caught her wrist gently. "If I wanted you dead, I wouldn't have wasted medical supplies." She continued suturing. "I'm here because Prometheus tried to recruit me first. They wanted someone who understood both American and Russian sniper doctrine. I refused. They killed my handler in witness protection as punishment." The sixth mini-climax built as the pieces clicked together. "That's why you were really at the sniper school. You were hunting them too. Until you showed up and accelerated everyone's timeline." Elena finished the sutures. "That operative you killed, her name was Katerina Petrov, my sister." The seventh mini-climax exploded in the silence that followed. Mai tensed for an attack that didn't come. Instead, Elena continued calmly. She volunteered for the program after our parents were killed in Chechnya. Thought becoming the perfect weapon would bring her peace. Prometheus convinced her that eliminating American snipers would prevent future wars. "And you're telling me this why?" The eighth mini-climax peaked with Elena's bitter smile. "Because the person running Prometheus also killed my parents. They've been orchestrating conflicts for 20 years, creating demand for their solutions. My sister died believing a lie, and you gave her a warrior's death. For that, I owe you the truth." Mai's phone buzzed again. The ninth mini-climax struck as Brad's voice came through, stressed and urgent. "Williams, wherever you are, don't come back. DOD's containment team isn't regular military. They're contractors. Prometheus contractors. Blake's been arrested, charged with negligence leading to training casualties." The 10th mini-climax built as Mai processed this information. The cover-up was moving fast, but in the wrong direction. They weren't trying to hide the incident, they were rewriting it, turning heroes into villains. "There's more," Brad continued. "I ran the data from that card. The next target on the kill list, it's happening tonight. A Marine sniper instructor at Quantico. They're going to make it look like suicide." The 11th mini-climax peaked as Mai made a decision. "Send me the details. I'll intercept." "Negative. It's a trap. They know you'll try to save him." Brad's voice carried certainty. "The operative told you to check Arlington for a reason. They want you there." But Mai understood something Brad didn't. The 12th mini-climax struck as she replied, "Sometimes the only way to spring a trap is from inside it." Elena stood, revealing she'd been monitoring her own communications. Russian intelligence intercepted Prometheus communications. They're planning something bigger than just killing snipers. They're going to stage a false flag operation, make it look like Russian operators are eliminating American forces. The 13th mini-climax built toward the first major twist. "They want to start a war," Mai breathed, understanding flooding through her. "Create the ultimate demand for their services, a full-scale conflict between superpowers. With perfectly trained operators on both sides, all controlled by Prometheus," Elena confirmed. My country has been infiltrated just like yours. We're not enemies in this. We're both victims." The 14th mini-climax erupted when the truck stop's lights suddenly cut out. Through the window, Mai saw vehicles surrounding the building, not government plates, but civilian trucks with tinted windows. Prometheus had found them. "Back exit," Mai commanded, but Elena was already moving. They burst through the emergency door as the 15th mini-climax peaked with gunfire erupting behind them. Not random shooting controlled professional meant to herd rather than kill. They wanted her alive. The 16th mini-climax struck as they reached Elena's vehicle, a modified Suburban with armor plating hidden beneath stock panels. "Get in," Elena ordered the engine already running. "Remote start, of course." Both women thought in terms of quick exits. They peeled out as pursuit vehicles converged. The 17th mini-climax built through a high-speed chase on dark Virginia back roads. Elena drove with the same precision she'd shown at the range, using the Suburban's weight to pit maneuver a pursuing sedan into a drainage ditch. "There," Mai pointed to an overpass ahead. "Stop under it." The 18th mini-climax peaked, as Elena understood immediately. They bailed from the vehicle just as a helicopter spotlight illuminated it. But they were already in the storm drain beneath the road, moving through knee-deep water in absolute darkness. Mai's phone vibrated again. The 19th mini-climax struck with a video message Captain Blake in an interrogation room, bloodied but defiant. A voice off camera spoke. "Sergeant Williams, you have 6 hours to surrender yourself at Arlington. Every hour you delay, one of your former students dies." The 20th mini-climax built as the video panned to show them 12 sniper candidates, including Brad, all restrained, all with red laser dots centered on their foreheads. The message was clear: comply, or watch them die. "It's not about you," Elena said quietly. "It's about what you represent. The perfect American operator. If they can break you, turn you, they prove their system works." The 21st mini-climax peaked as Mai realized Elena was right. This was psychological warfare on a massive scale. But understanding this game didn't mean she could avoid playing it. They emerged from the drain system near a Maryland metro station. The 22nd mini-climax struck as Mai spotted someone waiting Riker in civilian clothes, looking haggard and afraid. "Don't shoot," he said, hands visible. "Blake sent me before they took him. Said you'd need this." He held out a tablet showing building schematics. The 23rd mini-climax built as Mai recognized the layout, Arlington's administrative complex, specifically the underground records vault, where permanent military records were stored. "Why are you helping?" "Because I've been a bastard, but I'm not a traitor," Riker replied. "And because Mason wasn't the only instructor selling information. I've been investigating for months, building a case. Blake knew." The 24th mini-climax peaked with Riker's revelation. The Prometheus CEO is someone called the Architect. Nobody's seen them, but they have access to Pentagon databases, CIA operational files, even JSOC mission reports. This goes all the way to the top. Elena's phone chimed. The 25th mini-climax struck as she read the message. Russian intelligence confirms. The Architect has been manipulating both our governments for years, creating conflicts to test and refine their operator program. There's something else, Riker added, his voice strained. That woman who gave your eulogy, she's been visiting your grave every month for 3 years. Always at midnight, always alone. The 26th mini-climax built as Mai processed this. Someone had been maintaining her cover story, keeping the fiction alive. But why? What purpose did a ghost serve if no one knew it existed? Brad's voice crackled through the phone. "Williams, I've been digging into the financial records. Prometheus Systems is a shell. but the money trail leads to a defense contractor called Cerberus Dynamics. Their board of directors. The line went dead. The 27th mini-climax peaked as Mai tried calling back, getting nothing but silence. One by one, her communication channels were being severed. "We're being isolated," Elena observed. "Standard protocol before a termination." The 28th mini-climax struck as Mai made a command decision. "We split up. Elena, get to Quantico, save that Marine instructor. Riker, get those candidates to safety, use whatever authority Blake gave you." "And you?" Riker asked. "I keep my appointment at Arlington." The 29th mini-climax built as Mai checked her weapons. "Someone wants to meet me at my own grave, fine, but I doubt they'll expect me to bring backup." "What backup?" Elena asked. The 30th mini-climax peaked as Mai smiled grimly. "The kind that's been dead for 3 years." She explained her plan quickly. The 31st mini-climax struck as the others understood it was insane, borderline suicidal, but it might be the only way to expose the truth. "You'll need this." Elena handed her a small device. "Russian diplomatic transmitter. One-time use, but it'll punch through any jamming to send a single message." The 32nd mini-climax built as they parted ways, each heading toward their own likely death. But as Mai watched them disappear into the night, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years: trust. Not complete, not blind, but enough. The drive to Arlington took 2 hours through back roads. The 33rd mini-climax peaked as she arrived at the cemetery gates, finding them mysteriously open despite the late hour. Security cameras turned away as she passed someone clearly smoothing her path. Building 5 was the old records facility scheduled for demolition, but still standing. The 34th mini-climax struck as Mai entered, finding the lights already on, revealing row upon row of filing cabinets containing the service records of America's honored dead. "Punctual as always, Sergeant Williams." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. The 35th mini-climax built as a figure emerged from the shadows, a woman in her 60s, silver hair pulled back severely, wearing a black suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. "Director Harrington," Mai breathed, recognizing the former CIA deputy director who'd supposedly died in a plane crash 2 years ago. "Surprise," Harrington said with a cold smile. "Death, as you've discovered, can be quite liberating." The 36th mini-climax peaked as understanding flooded through Mai. Harrington had faked her own death to run Prometheus from the shadows, using her knowledge of American intelligence to create perfect enemies. "Why?" Mai asked, though she kept her hands visible, knowing there were certainly weapons trained on her. "Because peace is unprofitable," Harrington replied simply. "Because the war on terror was ending and defense budgets were shrinking. Because someone needed to create a new kind of enemy to justify a new kind of warfare." The 37th mini-climax struck as Harrington continued. "You were my proof of concept, Mai. The perfect operator trained in every discipline capable of adapting to any situation. But you were too good. You started questioning orders, developing a conscience. So you had me killed. I had you disappeared. There's a difference." The 38th mini-climax built as Harrington gestured to the files around them. "Do you know how many dead operators are actually working for Prometheus? How many ghosts I've created?" The second major twist arrived with brutal force as filing cabinets opened, revealing dozens of operators Mai recognized, all supposedly KIA, all very much alive, all pointing weapons at her. "Welcome to the real Ghost Protocol," Harrington announced. "America's best, freed from the constraints of law and loyalty, working for the highest bidder." The 39th mini-climax peaked as Mai recognized faces from the memorial wall at Fort Bragg, from honor rolls at Coronado, from the Pentagon's Hall of Heroes. These weren't just operators, they were legends, and they'd all been turned. "Join us, Mai," Harrington offered. "Your country thinks you're dead. Your family was told you died a hero. You have no identity to return to, no life waiting for you. But with Prometheus, you could shape the future of warfare." The 40th mini-climax struck as Mai appeared to consider it. "And if I refuse? Then you die for real this time, and we continue without you, though it would be a waste. That duel with Katerina proved you're still the best we've ever produced." The 41st mini-climax built as Mai reached slowly into her pocket. Every ghost tensed, but she only pulled out the damaged data card from the operative. "Katerina gave me this. Said to check Arlington. I don't think she meant the cemetery." Harrington's eyes narrowed. The 42nd mini-climax peaked as Mai continued. "She meant Arlington National Cemetery's database, where the real records are kept. The ones that show half these operators aren't dead at all. They're listed as deep cover assets, still drawing pay, still officially serving." "Impossible. Those records were destroyed." "No," Mai said, and the 43rd mini-climax struck with perfect timing as sirens wailed outside. "They were backed up. Brad Stevens found them, uploaded them to every major news outlet 10 minutes ago. The ghost army you've built, they're all about to be exposed." Harrington's composure finally cracked. "Kill her." But the 44th mini-climax erupted as half the ghosts turned their weapons on the other half. Elena's voice came through the PA system. "Sorry for the deception, Director, but some of us actually died with honor. The rest of us have been waiting 3 years for someone like Williams to give us a chance at redemption." The 45th mini-climax built toward its crescendo as a firefight erupted in the records facility. Mai dove behind a filing cabinet as bullets shredded the air where she'd stood. But this wasn't chaos. It was revolution. The ghosts were choosing sides, some loyal to Harrington's vision, others remembering their oaths. Through the violence, Mai heard Harrington escaping through a rear exit. The 46th mini-climax peaked as she pursued, following the woman who'd orchestrated so much death into the cemetery proper. Among the headstones under a crescent moon, they faced each other. The 47th mini-climax struck as Harrington pulled a pistol. "You've destroyed everything. Years of work, billions in investment." "Good," Mai replied, her own weapon steady. "Some things shouldn't be for sale." The 48th mini-climax built as Harrington laughed bitterly. "You think you've won? Prometheus was just one program. There are others. The world's changing, Sergeant. Soon loyalty to country will be obsolete. Everything will be about profit." "Maybe," Mai conceded, "but not today." The 49th mini-climax peaked as Harrington raised her weapon, but age and arrogance had made her slow. Mai's shot was perfect, not lethal, but disabling, dropping Harrington beside a headstone that read, "Unknown Soldier." The 50th and final mini-climax of Part 4 arrived as federal agents flooded the cemetery, real ones, this time led by Brad Stevens in full tactical gear. "Sergeant Williams, we need your testimony. Everything you know about Prometheus, about the Ghost Protocol." Mai looked down at Harrington, bleeding but alive, then at the headstone marking her own supposed grave. The earth had been recently disturbed. Someone had been maintaining the fiction right up to the end. "First," Mai said, "I want to see what's really in my coffin." As FBI agents secured Harrington and emergency teams rushed to treat the wounded, a backhoe was brought in. The coffin was raised under floodlights, while news helicopters circled overhead, broadcasting the surreal scene to a watching world. When they opened it, there was no body, just weapons cache in multiple currencies and passports with Mai's photo but different names. Everything a ghost would need to disappear forever. But there was one more thing, a letter sealed in plastic addressed to her. Mai recognized the handwriting immediately. Her real mother's handwriting, which was impossible since she'd been dead for 15 years. Or had she? The letter contained just 4 words. The war isn't over. As dawn broke over Arlington, Mai stood among the graves of real heroes, holding evidence that everything she thought she knew about her past might be another lie. Prometheus was finished, but something bigger was moving in the shadows. The Ghost Protocol had been just the beginning. Behind her, Riker was coordinating with military police to ensure the surviving candidates were safe. Elena had successfully prevented the assassination at Quantico. Captain Blake was being released, his charges dropped in light of the revelation. But Mai barely noticed. She was staring at her own empty grave, wondering who she really was, who her mother really was, and what war was actually being fought in the shadows of America's most sacred ground. The question now wasn't whether she was alive or dead. The question was whether Sergeant First Class Mai Williams had ever existed at all. The letter trembled in Mai's hands as FBI Evidence Response Team members photographed everything around her mother's supposed grave. 15 years of believing she was an orphan, 15 years of carrying that grief like shrapnel in her chest. And now this, her mother's handwriting on paper that looked barely a week old. The war isn't over. But which war? And how could someone dead for 15 years leave fresh correspondence? Brad Stevens approached carefully, his tactical vest still dusty from the firefight in Building 5. "Williams, we need to move. Media's going crazy. DOD wants you in protective custody, and there's something else." He held up his tablet showing breaking news footage. "Fort Ridgeline. They're implementing your recommendations already." The screen showed Captain Blake freshly released and still bearing bruises from interrogation, standing before the assembled sniper school candidates. His voice carried through the tablet speakers. "Effective immediately, this institution adopts new protocols. Integrity over aggression. Team protection over solo glory. And every shot you take in training, you take as if someone's life depends on it, because one day it will." Mai watched as Riker demoted to private, as she'd recommended led PT with a completely different demeanor, still tough, still demanding, but without the cruelty that had defined him before. He was actually helping a struggling candidate with proper form instead of mocking them. The transformation was jarring, but somehow genuine. "That's not all." Elena Volkov materialized beside them, having traded her torn ACUs for a sharp business suit that didn't quite hide the tactical holster beneath. "Russian intelligence is cooperating fully with the investigation. Prometheus had cells in Moscow, Beijing, Tehran, every major capital. Your actions didn't just save American lives." But Mai's attention remained fixed on the letter. Something about the paper felt wrong, too new, too clean for something supposedly buried for 3 years. She held it up to the dawn light, and there it was, a watermark that made her blood freeze. An image barely visible unless you knew to look for it, a phoenix rising from flames. "Phoenix Protocol," she whispered, pieces clicking together with horrible clarity. Prometheus was never the real program. It was a test run. Brad's expression darkened. "What do you mean?" "Think about it." Mai said, her mind racing through connections. Harrington gave up too easily. Half those ghost operators flipped sides immediately. The whole thing felt... She paused, searching for the word. "Rehearsed." Elena nodded slowly. "Like a training exercise. A live fire evaluation to see if the concept worked." The implications hit them simultaneously. If Prometheus was just a beta test, then somewhere someone was preparing to launch the real program Phoenix Protocol, and they'd learned from every mistake Prometheus had made. Mai's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Warehouse District, Pier 47, 1 hour. Come alone, or the truth about your mother dies with me. Attached was a photo that made Mai's knees weak, her mother very much alive, sitting in what looked like a medical facility dated just 2 days ago. It's a trap, Brad said immediately. Classic isolation tactics. Of course it's a trap, Mai replied, already checking her weapons. But whoever's running Phoenix has been playing a longer game than Harrington ever imagined. They've had 15 years to prepare, and they're holding cards we didn't even know were in the deck. Elena pulled out her Russian diplomatic transmitter, the one-time use device she'd given Mai earlier. You never used this. Take it now. Whatever happens, you'll be able to send one message through any jamming. No, Mai said, surprising them both. I need you to do something else with it. She quickly outlined a plan that made Brad whistle low. That's insane. You're betting everything on a theory. Not a theory, Mai corrected. A pattern. Every military operation has a signature, a rhythm. This one's felt wrong from the start because someone's been conducting it like a symphony, controlling every beat. But every conductor has tells. 45 minutes later, Mai approached Pier 47 alone, or apparently alone. The warehouse district was deserted at this hour, morning fog rolling in off the Potomac River, creating perfect concealment for any number of shooters. She counted at least 6 likely positions, probably more. The warehouse door was open, an invitation and a threat combined. Inside, industrial lights created pools of brightness separated by deep shadows. At the center, in the largest pool of light, sat a figure in a wheelchair. Mai's breath caught. It was her mother, or someone who looked exactly like her mother should look aged 15 years. The same sharp cheekbones, the same determined jaw, but the eyes were wrong. Too cold, too calculating. Hello, Mai, the woman said, her voice carrying a slight accent Mai didn't remember. Or should I call you Kestrel Ghost 7? Or perhaps by your real designation, Phoenix 1. The words hit like physical blows. Mai kept her weapon lowered but ready. You're not my mother. No, the woman agreed easily. Your mother died in a car accident when you were 12. I'm Dr. Sarah Chen, formerly of DARPA's Behavioral Engineering Division. I've been your handler since you were 13, though you never knew it. The revelation landed like a punch to the solar plexus, but Mai had learned to compartmentalize shock. The foster homes, the sudden scholarship to military academy, the perfect pathway to sniper school. All orchestrated, Chen confirmed. You weren't recruited, Mai. You were designed, selected from a pool of orphaned children with specific genetic markers for stability under stress-enhanced pattern recognition and superior hand-eye coordination, then carefully guided through experiences that would forge you into the perfect operator. Bullshit, Mai spat. But even as she denied it, memories were clicking into place the way opportunities had always appeared just when she needed them. How her instructors had always pushed her toward specific specializations, how every challenge had seemed perfectly calibrated to her abilities. Chen smiled coldly. The car accident that killed the family you were babysitting for, forcing you to join the army for financial stability, staged. Your sniper instructor in basic who recognized your natural talent, one of ours. Even your first combat deployment was specifically chosen to expose you to situations that would complete your psychological conditioning. And Carpenter. Mai's voice was deadly quiet. My spotter who died in Afghanistan. Necessary loss. His death provided the final trauma needed to separate you from normal human connections. After that, you were perfect, skilled, isolated, and absolutely lethal. But then something went wrong. Chen stood from the wheelchair, another deception, and began walking slowly around Mai. You developed something we hadn't programmed: genuine loyalty. Not to country or cause, but to individuals. It made you unpredictable, unreliable for certain missions. So you faked my death. We transitioned you to Phase 2, the Prometheus test. We needed to see if you could be recovered, reprogrammed. Tonight proved you can't be. Chen stopped directly in front of Mai. Which brings us to Phoenix Protocol. The warehouse lights suddenly blazed brighter, revealing what Mai had suspected: dozens of operators positioned throughout the space. But these weren't the desperate mercenaries or confused ghosts from Arlington. These moved with perfect synchronization, like a single organism with multiple bodies. Phoenix Protocol isn't about creating perfect enemies, Chen explained. It's about creating perfect soldiers, soldiers without conscience, without hesitation, without the messy humanity that makes regular operators unreliable. Drones, Mai said with disgust. Human drones. Evolution, Chen corrected. War is changing, Mai. Nation-states are becoming obsolete. Future conflicts will be between corporations, ideologies, interests that transcend borders. Phoenix Protocol provides the soldiers for that future. Operators who can seamlessly switch allegiances based on mission parameters, not outdated concepts like patriotism. And you want me to join this? Chen laughed, a sound like breaking glass. No, Mai. You've proven unsuitable for reprogramming, but you're still valuable. Your combat data, your DNA, your psychological profile, they'll help us refine the next generation. We just need you alive long enough to extract what we need. The trap was closing, but Mai had been counting on it. She triggered the device in her pocket, not the Russian transmitter, but something else entirely. Every phone in the warehouse suddenly blazed to life, broadcasting live video to social media platforms worldwide. The warehouse, Chen, the Phoenix operators, everything was being streamed to millions of viewers. Chen's composure cracked. Impossible. We're jamming all signals. You're jamming military and intelligence frequencies, Mai corrected. But you didn't think to block civilian social media protocols. Elena's Russian transmitter. We modified it to create a mesh network using every commercial phone tower in DC. Right now, the whole world is watching Phoenix Protocol reveal itself. The live stream viewer count was climbing exponentially: 50,000, 100,000, 500,000. Comments flooded in from around the globe. Government officials were being tagged. News networks were picking up the feed. "Kill the streams," Chen shouted, but it was too late. The Phoenix operators programmed for perfect obedience didn't know how to respond to a warfare scenario that existed entirely in cyberspace. But Chen had one more card to play. She pulled out a tablet showing security footage. Building 1847, Apartment 3C. Recognize it. Mai's blood froze. It was her safe house, the one place she'd thought was completely off the grid. Inside, tied to chairs, were 3 people she'd saved over the years: a diplomat's daughter from Beirut, an aid worker from Somalia, an interpreter from Afghanistan. People who shouldn't have known each other, brought together as leverage. "Social media fame won't save them," Chen said coldly. "Stand down, submit to extraction, and they live. Continue this spectacle, and Phoenix operators will execute them in exactly," she checked her watch, 4 minutes. This was the real trap, the one Mai hadn't seen coming. She could expose Phoenix Protocol, but at the cost of innocent lives, people who'd trusted her, who she'd promised to protect. "There is another option," a new voice said from the shadows. Riker emerged, but he was different, standing straighter, moving with casual lethalgy that didn't match his usual aggressive style. She could accept the truth. Mai's mind raced as Riker continued, You see, Williams' Dr. Chen isn't lying about your conditioning, but she's not telling the whole truth either. Phoenix Protocol has been running for 25 years. Every special operations candidate who showed exceptional promise was enrolled whether they knew it or not. He pulled off his shirt, revealing a phoenix tattoo on his shoulder, one Mai had seen before, on operators she'd served with, always explained away as unit pride or personal choice. We're all Phoenix Williams, every Tier 1 operator from the last 2 decades. The conditioning is so subtle, so gradual, that most never realize it happened. The revelation recontextualized everything, every mission, every operation, every classified action she'd been part of. They'd all been manipulated, guided, controlled to some degree. But here's the beautiful irony, Riker continued, and now his voice carried something that might have been admiration. You broke the conditioning not through deprogramming or countermeasures, but through simple human stubbornness. You refused to be what they designed you to be, and in doing so, you showed the rest of us it was possible. Chen raised a weapon, pointing it at Riker. Stand down, Operative 7. No, Riker said simply. Williams was right at Ridgeline. Leadership is service, not domination. I've been a bastard my whole life because that's what the conditioning reinforced. But watching her these past days, seeing someone choose to protect rather than destroy, despite everything, it reminded me why I originally joined the Army. The Phoenix operators were frozen their programming, unable to reconcile conflicting commands. Their perfect synchronization was becoming a liability as doubt spread through their ranks like a virus. 3 minutes, Chen warned, but her voice carried less certainty. Mai made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. She lowered her weapon completely, placing it on the ground. You're right, Dr. Chen. I was programmed, conditioned, manipulated, but you made one critical error in my design. She took a step forward, hands empty, but somehow more dangerous than before. You gave me the ability to learn to adapt, to evolve. And what I learned wasn't just how to kill it, was why killing should be the last option, not the first. You tried to remove my humanity, but instead you refined it. The livestream viewer count hit 2 million. Government agencies worldwide were mobilizing. The Phoenix Protocol was being exposed in real time, and there was no containing it. 2 minutes, Chen said, but her hand holding the tablet was shaking. Elena, Mai said calmly, knowing her partner was watching the stream. Execute Valkyrie. Thousands of miles away in Moscow, Elena Volkov entered a command into her computer. Within seconds, every Phoenix operative's phone began playing the same audio file, a deconditioning sequence she'd developed after her sister's death, designed to interrupt behavioral programming. It wasn't perfect, wouldn't completely break their conditioning, but it created enough cognitive dissonance to make them question their orders. Throughout the warehouse, Phoenix operators began looking at each other with confusion, with growing awareness of what they'd become. 1 minute, Chen said desperately, but she was alone now. Even her perfect soldiers were wavering. Mai took another step forward. There are FBI and military quick reaction teams 30 seconds out. Real ones, not contractors, not Phoenix operatives. You can execute those hostages, but you'll be doing it on live video in front of 5 million witnesses. Or you can surrender and maybe, just maybe, help us undo the damage Phoenix Protocol has caused. The sound of helicopters became audible, growing louder by the second. Chen looked around at her wavering operators at the cameras, streaming everything at the weapon in her hand that suddenly seemed very heavy. You destroyed 25 years of work, she said, her voice breaking. No, Mai replied. I freed 25 years worth of soldiers who didn't know they were slaves. But Chen's tablet showed 30 seconds remaining. Her finger hovered over the execute command. The warehouse held its breath. 5 million viewers watched in silence and time seemed to stop. Then Chen did something unexpected. She laughed. Not the cold, calculating laugh from before, but something almost human. You know what the true irony is, Mai? You succeeded not despite your programming, but because of it. We designed you to be perfect, and perfection, it turns out, includes the capacity for conscience. She dropped the tablet, and it shattered on the concrete floor. Around the warehouse, Phoenix operators began removing their masks, revealing faces. Mai recognized operators she'd served with, trained with, trusted. They weren't enemies. They were victims, just like her. The helicopters arrived in thunder and light, FBI and military personnel flooding the warehouse. Chen didn't resist as they arrested her, her eyes never leaving Mai's face. "The war isn't over," she said, echoing the letter's words. "Phoenix was just one program. There are others in other countries with other goals. But maybe, just maybe, you've given us a way to fight them that doesn't require becoming them." As Chen was led away, Brad Stevens approached with his tablet. "The hostages are safe. Elena's team extracted them before Chen could give any termination order. It was all perfectly coordinated." "How?" Mai asked. Elena's voice came through the tablet's speaker. "Because some of us Russian intelligence operatives never forgot that the real enemy isn't American or Russian, it's those who would turn us into weapons without will." The sun was fully up now, streaming through the warehouse windows, illuminating the faces of dozens of Phoenix operators who were slowly realizing they were free. Some wept. Some stood in shocked silence. Others began helping secure evidence, choosing to act on their own will for perhaps the first time in years. Riker approached Mai, his perpetual sneer replaced by something approaching respect. "So what now, Williams, or whoever you really are?" Mai looked around at the scene, the arrested conspirators, the freed operators, the millions still watching online. "Now we rebuild. Not Phoenix Protocol, not Ghost Protocol, but something better. Training that creates soldiers, not slaves. Warriors with conscience." "And you?" Blake's voice came from behind her. The captain had arrived with the response teams still looking battered but standing strong. "I have a grave to fill," Mai said, thinking of the empty coffin at Arlington. "Sergeant First Class Mai Williams died 3 years ago. Time to make it official." And then, Mai smiled, the first genuine smile anyone had seen from her since this all began. "Then I help every other ghost find their way back to the light. Phoenix Protocol may have created us, but we get to decide what we become." 6 weeks later, Fort Ridgeline's sniper school had been transformed. The death bench was gone, replaced by mentorship programs. The qualification course that had been designed to break people now built them up while maintaining the highest standards. Elena Volkov, officially attached as an international liaison, helped develop deconditioning protocols for Phoenix operators worldwide. Brad Stevens led a joint task force that identified and freed over 300 Phoenix operatives across 17 countries. Each one was given a choice: continue serving with full knowledge and consent, or retire with honor and support. Riker still a private, but somehow carrying more real authority than before, became the school's lead instructor in ethical warfare. His first lesson always began the same way: power without conscience is just violence with better funding. Captain Blake was promoted to major and given oversight of reforming all special operations training. His office wall held 2 photos, now one of the old guard, rigid and unforgiving, and one of the new generation, strong but human. And Mai Williams. She officially died on paper, but lived on in a different form. Sometimes as an instructor who appeared without warning to teach real combat skills. Sometimes as a voice on the radio guiding operators through impossible situations. sometimes as just a shadow, ensuring that those who would turn soldiers into slaves never got the chance. The Phoenix Protocol files, fully declassified, became required reading at every military academy. Not as a how-to guide, but as a warning. This is what happens when we forget that soldiers are human beings, not programmable assets. The letter from Mai's mother turned out to be the activation phrase for one final Phoenix Cell 1 that would have unleashed programmed operators worldwide if Mai had responded differently. By choosing conscience over conditioning, she'd prevented a shadow war that could have destabilized nations. Dr. Sarah Chen, awaiting trial, gave full cooperation to authorities. Her testimony revealed 17 other programs like Phoenix operating worldwide. Each one was systematically exposed and dismantled, their operators freed, their architects arrested. It would take years to undo all the damage, but the process had begun. On a foggy morning at Arlington National Cemetery, a small group gathered at an unmarked grave. No ceremony, no speeches, just a moment of silence for all the ghosts who'd been created and destroyed in the name of perfect warfare. Mai stood among them, no longer alone, no longer a ghost. She'd been designed as a weapon, lived as a phantom, but chose to become something else, a guardian of those who serve, ensuring that never again would soldiers be turned into slaves. As they walked away from the cemetery, Elena asked, "Any regrets?" Mai considered the question, thinking of all the pain, all the manipulation, all the death that had brought them to this point. "No," she said finally. "Every scar taught me something. Every betrayal made me stronger. Every loss reminded me what we're really fighting for." "And what's that?" Mai looked back at the rows of white headstones, each marking someone who'd served with honor. "The right to choose who we are, not who we're programmed to be." The fog lifted as they reached the cemetery gates, revealing a clear blue sky. Somewhere in hidden facilities around the world, other operators were waking up from their programming, remembering they were human, choosing their own paths. The war wasn't over. Chen had been right about that, but now it was being fought by soldiers who knew the difference between following orders and following conscience. And that Mai knew made all the difference. In his office at Fort Ridgeline, Major Blake updated the school's motto. Where once it had read, "One shot, one kill," it now said, "One conscience, one choice." Every sniper who graduated would understand that the hardest target to hit wasn't at 1,000 yards, it was the balance between duty and humanity. The live stream of Phoenix Protocol's exposure became the most watched video in history, a permanent reminder that transparency could defeat even the deepest shadows. Government agencies worldwide instituted new protocols requiring psychological assessments designed to detect conditioning programs. And in a small apartment in Virginia, the woman who'd once been Mai Williams sat at a computer monitoring communications, watching for signs of the next Phoenix, the next ghost, the next attempt to turn warriors into weapons. She'd been designed to be perfect, and in a way she was perfectly human, perfectly flawed, perfectly determined to ensure that no one else would be made into what she'd been forced to become. The screen flickered with a new alert, unusual activity at a training facility in Eastern Europe, patterns that matched early Phoenix conditioning. Mai reached for her phone, speed dialing a number that officially didn't exist. "This is Kestrel," she said when the encrypted line connected. "We have a possible situation, requesting immediate verification." "Copy, Kestrel," Elena's voice replied. "Team standing by." As she began coordinating the response, Mai allowed herself a small smile. They'd tried to make her a ghost, but she'd become something far more powerful, a guardian of ghosts, ensuring that every soldier retained the one thing no program could ever truly take: their humanity. The war wasn't over. It might never be truly over. But for the first time in her life, Mai Williams, or whoever she chose to be, wasn't fighting it alone. She was part of something larger, something that couldn't be programmed or controlled, a brotherhood and sisterhood of warriors who'd looked into the abyss of perfect warfare and chosen to remain human. Outside her window, the sun set over the Potomac, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. Somewhere a sniper candidate was learning that true strength wasn't in the trigger pull, but in knowing when not to shoot. Somewhere a Phoenix operative was remembering their real name. Somewhere the future was being written by those who refused to be programmed. The ghost was gone. The guardian remained. And that made all the difference in the world.